Coming in number 10, we have the water is broken. We all know how water is supposed to flow. We know what water is. It always flows downwards. It's usually in a smooth motion unless it's crashing like a massive wave. We all know that Bruce Lee video. And it stays together, like it can splash, but it's not going to float through the air in separate pieces. Well, then someone please explain to me how this could happen. There is clearly something off here. Whoever's in charge of the code of this part of the world needs to get over here right now because things are falling apart. The water is floating in midair, and if I look at that for too much longer, my brain is going to break in half. Like, is water that does that even safe to drink? Or if I drink it, is the water that makes up my body going to start to drift apart and I'll float away? Will my body rip apart like someone put C4 up my butt like in Man on Fire? If you guys have not seen Man on Fire, you should go check out that movie right now because it is amazing. Shout out to Denzel Washington. And guys, make sure that you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Coming at number 9, we have Somebody Restart Shaq. This one might be the most famous one on the list because it involves one of the most famous people in the world. We all know Shaquille O'Neal for his amazing sports commentary, for his hilarious show Shaq Versus, and probably for his biggest accomplishment being in a movie where he was a genie. Also, don't forget about the video game Shaq Fu. Well, with that many accomplishments, is Shaq who he is because he worked his butt off to be the best? Or is it because he was programmed? Well, if he is part of the fabric of this simulation, then someone needs to restart him. Check out this clip. He's stuck there like a loading screen. Maybe it was the guy watching this TV. Maybe the image on his TV froze for a moment, so it made it seem like Shaq couldn't move. Or this dude is part of the Matrix, and if you manage to get out of the Matrix, he is Agent Smith. Someone please tell me that Shaq is the villain in the 4th Matrix movie. That would really make my life so much better. Coming in number 8, we have Goodbye Snow. This next glitch looks like it was pulled right out of a James Bond movie. I mean, it just happened so perfectly, you would think that this SUV has some sort of camouflage tech, and I don't think that comes with the standard model. You might need to upgrade to the S series for that one. Well, what we're about to see is an SUV driving along the road, and then all of a sudden there's snow that starts to fly off the top of the car, and it almost completely vanishes.
But otherwise nothing out of the ordinary here. But these glitches seem to come when we least expect them. Slowly but surely the car appears to fade away. Slowly but surely it is consumed by the snowflakes.
You all saw what I just saw, right? This thing was there and then it was gone. Now the logical answer is that the car was there and then it sped up, which caused the snow on top of the car to fly off, which then caused low visibility so you couldn't see it as it drove away. But even the tail lights disappear. I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but there might be some alien tech in that family-sized car. That seems like the most logical explanation. Coming in at number 7, we have the cup dance. Okay, this one is supposed to be someone's sound system making a paper cup float. And I gotta say, yes, it is probably the sound system because sound waves can be extremely powerful. I mean, did you know that a flashbang can make you poop your pants? I bet you didn't know that. That's how much a loud noise can affect you. So remember that every time your player gets flashbanged in COD, they are actually pooping their pants. But let's take a look at this and then you can be the judge of whether or not this is a glitch. Okay, that sound system in the car must be jacked up. Also, I don't think you should play it so loud. That can't be good for your ears. But could it really make a cup stutter step like that? I don't know anything about sound systems, so maybe. Coming in at number 6, we have the floating manhole. Now, even though this sounds much more devious than it is, I promise you that this is not that nasty. Just take a look at this clip.
So how on earth is this one bouncing around so madly, so freely? As if it's as light as a feather.
Now you would think that maybe there is just a buildup of farts in the sewers, but there would have to be a hell of a lot of farts for that thing to move. Do you know how much a manhole weighs? That thing isn't just going to dance like that unless there's some serious force underneath it or a glitch in the Matrix. Coming in number 5, we have the mysterious tree. I couldn't imagine a worse thing to wake up to. Picture this. You have a great night's sleep. You wake up before your alarm, fully rested. You have a great breakfast, and then you get your things ready for work, and then you walk outside, and there's a tree through your car. That would be a pretty upsetting thing to find all of the sudden. And it didn't get blown through your car in some storm, it grew through your car. Take a look at this. How does that happen? It looks like the programmer of Earth was sleeping on the job and then forgot where the trees are supposed to go. Also, there's no way that car insurance covers mysterious trees that pop up in your car. That sucks. Coming in at number 4, we have the plane stalled. Now, if a plane actually stalls, we know it can be the worst thing possible that can happen to you while you're in the air. The plane will start to fall towards the ground and you can kiss your butt goodbye because that's probably going to be the end of you. But I guess sometimes it doesn't have to go like that. There's apparently a stop in the sky option that no one ever told us about. Well, it looks like we're going to have to take a look at this one to make sure it's real. Now, looking at this thing, you can see that the footage is actually pretty grainy, so who knows? Maybe the person who filmed this just added the plane to the sky afterwards and then uploaded this freaky video to the internet to freak out all of us. Or maybe the Cyberpunk devs will get to this one with the next patch. I mean, we're doing a list on glitches. I needed to do at least one Cyberpunk joke. I have to say that I love that game, and I'm really sorry for anyone who's playing it on console because it's running really good on PC. But hopefully, after a long, hard road of patches, the game will work on every platform. Coming in at number 3, we have the Afterglow. Now, the Afterglow is the feeling you have after you meet me for the first time. I am just that amazing. Just kidding, most people feel like they need a shower after they meet me. But the Afterglow is an effect that can happen sometimes in a mirror. I haven't heard of this before, but let me just show you so it can make a little bit more sense.
Demonstrated by the shovel glass placed vertically to the real lamp. However, it's so hard to accept that such bulbs could produce afterglows.
Now, what is apparently happening is that the light that is coming off the bulb is still glowing in the mirror because it was so bright. Now, I don't know if that's a real thing or if it's just something made up to explain this glitch in the Matrix. But even if that is something that can actually happen, I don't think a little hotel light would have enough juice to leave a glow stain in the mirror. I would think that you would need something a lot more powerful, but I also don't know anything about science, so who the hell am I to say anything? Coming in at number 2, we have a floating bird. It turns out planes aren't the only ones that will get stuck in the sky. Let's just hope that if any people watching this video are falling from the sky down to the earth, then this glitch will happen because it seems like it could be a lifesaver. How does a bird do something like that? Now, once again, we are working with grainy footage. I mean, catching something extraordinary on camera almost has to be on grainy footage, or else it doesn't make any sense. So, who knows? Maybe this bird was caught in something and all the people around it wanted to help it out. They saw that if they gave this bird a little push, that it would be able to get free. Maybe this footage was taken in a country that has some massive spiders that have webs big enough to catch birds, and all we saw was a bird that was stuck in a massive spider web. And then that dude hit it with a broom and he was able to knock it free. That could have been what happened, or was it another glitch in the Matrix? Woo! Coming into the number 1 spot, we have a lady vanishes. Now this is a pretty common glitch, but probably the one that is the hardest to explain. Like with the bird, we could say that it could have been a spider web. With the car, it was snow flying off and it could have just been bad visibility. But when you see someone standing in one spot and then they're gone right when someone passes in front of them, that makes it seem like there's something wrong with the programming. I've seen this kind of glitch again and again. I've seen it with cars, I've seen it with other things, but this one stands out to me because where did that lady go? Did she just duck down for no reason? Why would she do something like that? Was she trying to freak everyone out and make it seem like she had disappeared? And if anyone was going to disappear, it seemed like it should have been her. She was kind of a background character in that scenario. Coming in number 10, we have the invisible car crash. Now, there are tons of ways to explain real-life glitches. When you see someone lag on camera, that could have just been the recording. When you see a plane stalled in the sky like we had on our last video, that could be explained through some clever editing. But I don't really know how you fake a car crash like the one I'm about to show you. Yeah, you guys just saw what I just saw, right? That was a car that was crashing into nothing. There was a car that was zooming along the highway, and then it smacked into an invisible barrier. Now, this could have been some pole in the road that was angled so perfectly that the driver and the camera couldn't see it. Now, that is possible, but highly unlikely. How could something that thin and small be strong enough to cause a moving car that's going about 60 kilometers an hour to stop in its tracks? Was there some sort of invisible force field there that was left on by accident? Or could this just be someone spending hours editing something strange to put out as disinformation to make us all very confused? Either way, I would be pissed if I was the owner of that car. You don't do anything wrong, and then something invisible causes your car to be a write-off? Is that even covered under your insurance? Coming at number 9, we have sailing in the sky. If you have it in your mind that you will never reach the level of wealth to afford a sailboat, well, let me tell you that there's a whole other level of wealth that we have no idea about. There is a class of people who have been taking their boats to the skies. Aren't we all seeing that right now? I have no idea how reflections off the water will affect your camera and how it will pick that up, but that looks like someone got their boat to fly through the sky at a very reasonable pace. I mean, that boat is just cruising along, not too fast or slow. Sky sailing is a brand new thing, and this guy has already mastered it, but how on earth is that happening? Is there some new boat-shaped plane that we don't know about? I mean, that does sound like something that Elon Musk would make. Tesla has a car that looks like a tank, and now they have a plane that looks like a boat. Coming in number 8, we have teleporting, time traveling, or NPC. I would imagine that sometime in the future we will lock down teleportation. I don't know if time travel is on the table, but who knows? If we went back 100 years and got someone to eat Korean fried chicken, they might have an overdose from all the flavor. But if people are working on it, you would imagine it would take some time to work out all the kinks. In this next clip, we might be seeing the early stages of people glitching reality so they can teleport. You see, that massive truck had to swerve out of the way so that they didn't crash into that lady. Some random woman appeared out of nowhere, and it looks like she has a perfectly clean lab coat on. I mean, I don't know how someone would end up walking around in the middle of the highway miles away from any town, but they usually don't dress like they came right out of the lab. She seems so calm even though she was almost hit by a truck. Usually when a 16-wheeler has to swerve out of the way so it doesn't crash into me, I wet my jeans just a little bit. But she's just strolling like she knew she was going to be safe, or she's a poorly programmed NPC. Next on the list, we have Brady Fiegel squared. There are a lot of people in this world who say they have found their twin. I'm looking at you, David Diggs. If I get tagged in one more picture of you, I'm gonna have to chase you down and take a side-by-side picture so people know we're not the same person. But even though David Diggs and I kinda look the same, we have nowhere close to the same similarities as Brady Fiegel and Brady Fiegel. For one, both these guys have the exact same name. On top of that, they both play professional baseball. On top of that, they are both left-handed pitchers. This seems pretty rare, and you would expect this to be the point where the similarities end. Well, guess what? There's more. For one, they both look almost identical. They both have had the same surgery from the same doctor, and they even dress similar, wearing the same glasses. It would seem that the random person generator that populates this planet with people might have glitched and made two copies of the same dude. People thought that they might have been long-lost twins that were separated at birth. A DNA test showed that that wasn't true, but they did have the same German ancestry. Coming in next on the list, we have the cat reflection. I don't know what kind of software is going into making the mirrors in our giant simulation world, but it would seem that this is a place ripe for glitches. Oh, and just so we're clear, I'm not a believer in simulation theory. I just like playing along with the theme for this list. But even though I think that everything can be explained logically, this next clip is a little trippy. The CPU that is in charge of getting everything running must have been putting the computing power somewhere else when this went off. I mean, that would be a good sign to tell if you are an important person if you think simulation theory is real. Like, if this is indeed a simulation, I'm going to play with this idea for a moment, and there are a bunch of glitches around you, that would mean that the universal computing power is being used somewhere else on more important and interesting people. So if you see those glitches, that's your sign to step up your game. screen because your life is boring. Next on the list we have Mark Zuck is a Matrix program. If there's anyone that could be a lizard person or a robot or an alien or some sort of simulation-based software person that has been put into the world to control us and cause havoc, it would be Mark Zuckerberg. And there have been several moments where people have caught this poor excuse for an alien trying to be a human acting weird. But this one has to be my favorite.
You need to focus and try not to let stuff bother you as much as possible. But it is going to bother you because you're human, and I was human. I am human, still.
The Zuck was caught red-handed saying that he wasn't a human. That has to be one of the most obvious glitches ever. The programmers would have been like, who's in charge of writing the script for Zuckerberg, and why did you make him act like a robot and make references to not being human because you're blowing our cover big time? I mean, let's say in the next few years there's a massive revolution and we get into a bunch of secret files about which famous people living among us are aliens and which ones are humans. I would be more surprised to find out that this guy is actually fully human. Next on the list, we have the rain spot. I mean, we all hate bad weather, so I think many of us would prefer if we could condense it into one spot and have everything else nice all the time. Well, I guess there must have been a trial run for some new rain patches because that's what we got here. It would seem that for some reason the clouds in that area have glitched out and the rain is pouring down in only one spot. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Now that has to be some sort of glitch or the plot to a children's book called The Loneliest Rain Cloud. A book about a cloud that is rainy all the time, but all the other clouds around him are nice, so he has no friends. And he travels around everywhere trying to make friends, but everyone runs from him because they don't want to get wet. Someone get my publicist on the phone because I have a book to write. Next on the list, guys, we have the smartphone time traveler. One of the wildest things ever caught on camera is the footage from a Mike Tyson fight that looks like there's someone filming the fight in the background. The reason that this is so weird is because the footage is from 1995, and even though there were some phones back then that could have been considered smartphones, there was nothing released that had a camera on it. That wouldn't be released for another 5 years. And when you look at the footage, it seems like that phone is a very modern smartphone. Now, this could have been some device that simply looks like a phone, and people have been making the case to say that this is in fact a smartphone so they can argue that time travel is real, but really we have no idea what happened here. We have no idea who was recording this Mike Tyson fight with this mysterious device. Next on the list, guys, we have a plane vanishes. Now, there have been a lot of reports of all sorts of stuff like this. Like, apparently all of the alien stuff that happened in Roswell, New Mexico, that was all faked by the government because they were testing out experimental aircrafts, and they decided that making people think that aliens were real was safer than telling them what the military was up to. So what you're about to see might be some secret government aircraft caught on camera, or it might be a glitch. I mean, you all saw what I just saw, right? There was a plane there and then it was gone. Everyone was focused on it. It was in the sky and then it blinked out of existence like half the people in Avengers Infinity War. Also, random question for the comments. Would you rather be one of the people who blinked out of existence when Thanos snapped his fingers and then came back 3 years later to a whole new world? Or would you have rather been there the whole time and lived through the whole thing and saw the world post-snap? Well, whoever was on the plane seems like they didn't have a choice in disappearing because now they are for sure gone. Unless the sky is all a massive projection and that was just a glitch on one of the screens. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have the Pope vanishes. Now, I will start off by saying I have no idea what the Pope does and what his powers are. Can he fly? Can he control the weather? Does he have telekinesis? I never went to church, so I don't know. So the clip that went viral of him vanishing about a year ago might be one of his holy powers, or it was a glitch that no one was supposed to see. Let's take a look. That was something that was seen from the Pope's balcony as he was addressing people about the COVID-19 pandemic. After his speech was done, he just vanished, and there were several news outlets that showed the exact same thing. So this wasn't just a broadcast that screwed up. Some say this might have been a hologram of the Pope because he was actually isolating somewhere and didn't want to catch the virus. I mean, we know that hologram tech is real. Most of us have seen that massive Tupac hologram that came out years ago. And if anyone has access to the latest and greatest hologram tech, it has to be the Pope. Coming in at number 10, we have car crash from nothing. I know I'm not the only one who has seen a video like this before. A car is just gliding on the street, and then out of nowhere, it seems like the car crashes into nothing. Let's have a look. There are dozens of videos like this all over the internet, and I have yet to hear a good answer for why something like this could happen. We all just watched the same thing, right? A car is cruising down the street and then boom, it smashes into an invisible wall, and it doesn't just stop there, it kind of gets rejected out of the way like there was some sort of energy pushing the car away from it. Now, is this a glitch of the Matrix? Is this some sort of alien tech that we don't know about? Or does the Earth just shoot out some invisible energy at random times of the day that can ruin your car in a way that will never be covered by your car insurance? I would love some answers on this, so please jump into the comments and let us know what's going on, because this one has my head spinning in every direction. And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Next on the list, we have copycat NPC. Running into someone that looks like you isn't the most common thing in the world, but it does happen. But running into someone that is dressed just like you and also is doing the exact same thing as you, well, that would make you think that there's something off in the Matrix.
These two complete strangers stood next to each other utterly randomly, yet both seem to have the exact same legs.
For any of our viewers who play video games, especially games like Fallout and Skyrim, you know that with big open world games, eventually you're going to run into another NPC that looks and sounds a lot like someone else in the world. The games are just too big to render everything completely unique. Well, that might be what happened in the picture we just saw. Our simulated world couldn't compute with what was going on and had to fart out a couple of the same character models just to keep things processing normally. Maybe that's what twins are. The software that runs this world needs to keep cranking out some people, so it just shoves two into the world at the same time who look exactly the same. All this time, we thought twins were special, but they're really just lazy programming. Also, I want to cover this. I've said this before, but I don't believe in simulation theory. It's just fun to play around with this idea for these videos. Coming in number 8, we have Daniel Radcliffe on repeat. There are a lot of people who have doppelgangers in this world. If we look through history, there are even more, especially when it comes to celebrities. But the weird thing with Daniel Radcliffe is that he has so many of them throughout history that his bloodline must be one of the strongest ever, or there is some very lazy programming going on. He has spoken about this on several talk shows, as it's always a fun thing to bring up, but one of the weirdest parts about all of the Radcliffe clones that exist now and in the past is that they are both men and women who look so much like him. It would seem that this man has the basic character set for character creation. Like, you know, when you start a game up for the first time and then you get a character creation screen and they just give you a generic face to start with, Radcliffe must be the starting face for both men and women. That's why we have so many of him walking around the world. Coming in at number 7, we have Caught on Live TV. It can be easy to brush some of these aside as fake or just a coincidence, which they all probably are, but when you catch something on live TV, it brings up a few more questions. Like you all just saw what I saw, right? There was a ball there, it was flying through the air, and then it was gone out of nowhere. It was like it warped into another dimension. That would be a terrible thing to send to another world. We don't send any sort of information, just a really hard ball moving very fast. Now, I don't know what happened here and where that lands in the rulebook. Like, if the pitcher throws the ball and in between the ball getting hit and flying off for a home run, it warps out of existence, is that still a home run? Do you you just get to go to first base? I mean, if we're going to keep messing around with time space, then we might have to start filling these things out in the rulebook, because they're going to start happening a lot more. Next on the list, guys, we have checkered waves. I have to say, I have no idea how the ocean works. You could tell me that it's all powered by some dude on a bike at the bottom of the ocean who doesn't need to breathe or take any breaks, and I would believe you. I mean, even me just saying that the ocean is powered shows you how little I really know about anything. But I don't think I have ever heard of something like this happening. Now, take a long, hard look at this, because at first it took me a second. If you look at the waves coming from the top of the picture, you can see that they're going towards the beach. But then if you look at the waves to the left of the picture, it looks like they're going along the beach. Now, I need to say that I don't know anything about science, so there's probably a very simple explanation for this that I don't know about, but I just see what looks like the beach glitching out because someone programmed the waves wrong. Next on the list, we have gaming squared. Now, for this one, I wouldn't be surprised if these two were just twins that were left in a Walmart to play some video games while their mom was doing some shopping. That's what I would do as a kid, and that's what so many other kids love to do. But this is still weird. Like, you were seeing what I'm seeing, right? These look like they are the exact same kid doing the exact same thing. Now, there is a lot that bothers me about this. I mean, if you do have twins, please don't dress them up the same way, because if I saw something like this in person, my brain would probably Control-Alt-Delete and I would pass out. But also, let's say this whole glitch in the Matrix thing is real. You're telling me that when I was a kid and I was waiting for my turn to play games at the store and I didn't get a chance, it was because there was a glitch? I'm calling up God and complaining about this one. Does he have a customer service team that I can complain to, like a Karen who isn't happy about her life so she takes it out on other people? Is that what praying is? Is praying just complaining to God's customer service team? Next on the list, guys, we have something in the mirror. Now that we have so many people that are jumping over to simulation theory like it's the next big religion, some people have been asking themselves, do you think that everything we see as ghosts or paranormal could just be glitches in the system? Like, was that thing that the girl saw float through the mirror some sort of spooky ghost, or just some bad programming that made it seem like an NPC was somewhere that they shouldn't have been? Or was this just an edited video that was thrown on the internet to give a ton of people the heebie-jeebies? Next on the list, guys, we have the Russian bike teleporter. This is one of the most famous glitch in the Matrix clips on the internet. I have probably watched this north of 50 times and I still can't figure out how this man is able to appear out of nowhere.
Не мешай ничего. Нормально, нормально. Ну что, давай тогда еще разок. На болотный еще.
I mean, there is a lot going on in that clip. To even get to the bottom of our mysterious bike person, we need to first ignore what's going on in front of him. Like, was that dude on the right selling stuff out of the back of his truck, and why does he have an accordion? On top of that, does the other dude just talk like that all the time, or was he drunk? Those are the questions we need to block out just so we can see the man on the back warp out of thin air on a bike like he came through a wormhole. I wonder if in the future they will have bikes that can ride through wormholes. That would just be such a pleasant way to go through time. Next on the list, guys, we have the Soloway Spaceman. This is one of the most famous cases of glitches in the Matrix or extraterrestrials that we have ever seen. First, let me show you the picture, and then I will give you a breakdown of everything that happened. So, sitting in this picture is Elizabeth Templeton, just a young girl hanging out with some flowers back in the year 1964. Seems like she was having a very good time without a care in the world. Now, her father took this picture, and let me tell you, he's not the guy standing behind her in the picture. This was back in the year 1964, so obviously back then, you didn't know what you took in a picture until you had the film developed. Once Liz's father, Jim, got the photos back, he noticed the spaceman standing behind her, and he started to tell people about the mysterious person that was caught in the picture. Since that day, him and his daughter were alone in the field. Eventually, the news spread, and it was the talk of the town. This led to Jim getting a visit from two men in black who told him to forget what he saw. To this day, the picture has never been explained. Coming into at the number 1 spot, we have the floating bird. Now, I know we have shown other birds stuck in the air through this series, but this one just baffles me. I want to say it's just a spider web or something, but look at this. How does a bird fly up into the air and then just get stuck like that? I know that there's a lot to learn about gravity, but I thought a universal law was what goes up must come down, not what goes up comes down most of the time, but sometimes gets stuck in the air and then flaps around and freaks everyone out. I didn't know that was one of the laws.
Coming in at number 10, we have celebrity matches. If you've been watching this channel for a while, then you will have for sure heard about the strange thing that has popped up several times, and that is celebrity doppelgangers. It's something that has been brought up so many times, and not just on Most Amazing Top 10, but with people all around the world. It's strange that so many famous people have matches that look almost identical throughout history. Now, is this because the rich and famous are actually immortals that will never die and the Illuminati is real and one day they will eat our souls or something like that? I can't remember how it's supposed to go. Or is it because the universe only has so many models that it can throw out through its random person generator, and this is why we have had a couple glitches in the Matrix and these people look so alike, they look like they're carbon copies of each other? Or is it just because people can look alike and it's not that crazy? I don't really have an answer for this question. I mean, who do you think I am? I'm just as confused as you are. Coming in number 9, we have a glitch to a new location. Don't you hate when there's a glitch in a game and it stops you from being able to pick up an item that is usually a key item that you need to progress, and then you have to reload an old save and it's all kinda lame? Well, for this story, we have to head over to the wonderful world of Reddit, and we're going to bring up a story from Spirity, that is the Reddit user's name. They talked about a very strange day they had back in 2018. This is how it played out. They got up, they grabbed their things, they headed out to a gas station to grab some stuff before they went to work. They paid for everything via debit card, and then when they got back in their car, they couldn't find their debit card anywhere. Spirity remembered throwing their debit card in the cup holder between the two seats, but it wasn't there. So they searched all over the car, but no luck. They figured that they would find it later or just get a new card, so they headed to work. When they got home that night, they found their debit card sitting on the kitchen table. Okay, this is very creepy. Now, to be sure they weren't going crazy, they checked their bank account to see if they made a debit payment at the gas station, and sure enough, they did. What on earth could this have been? But I wouldn't feel too shaken about it, because if it is a simulation that we're living in, it seems like the simulation is on your side. Coming in number 8, we have a doppelganger reset. If you were to run into a person who looked just like you, what would you do? Would you go up to them and be excited you met your long lost twin and now you can be friends forever? Or would you try and kill them before they kill you so you can gain their power, because there only can be one? Well, no matter what your reaction, seeing your clone walking around in the wild would freak you out a little bit. Well, this story was snagged off the interweb, and it goes like this. A young professional was walking down the street and they were in a little bit of a rush to get to work on time, and they stopped at a crosswalk of a busy intersection in downtown Chicago. There were cars zooming by, and then waiting to cross towards them was someone who looked identical to them. And not just a little bit, they were dressed the same way, they had the same hair, the same bag. It was like looking in a mirror. Then, just as the information was processing in their mind, a bus passed by and they broke eye contact. When the bus was gone, so was the clone. Did this person just imagine a double of themselves? Or did the Matrix realize that there was a glitch and then move their clone to another server? Next on the list, we have an extra life. This one was snagged right off of Reddit, and it's a pretty strange story. A Redditor talked about the time that their dog passed away. This is a very sad moment in anyone's life, but it's something that all pet owners must face. All of us will most likely outlive our pets. But here's something very strange that happened afterwards. They were sad for some time, but then they saw some signs around town about some dogs that were up for adoption. And one of the dogs in the photo looked just like their dog that had just passed away, but it was a younger version. They immediately called the person selling off these pups and they rushed over. They said it was like an instant connection, like their dog that had just passed away was brought back to them. Now, this was probably just a coincidence, but it might have been the Matrix reloading an old save file, so this person didn't feel so sad about losing their dog. It's actually a really nice one. Next on the list, we have the helicopter. Here's something that had everyone scratching their heads. Here's a video of a helicopter taking off without the blades moving. If you were to tell me that this video was real, I would just think that it was in the early stages of animation and someone hadn't got to the propeller yet, or this whole thing was being lifted by a crane. That would seem like the most logical answer. But apparently this thing is actually flying. The official statement is that the shutter speed of the camera matches the propeller speed, so it looks like it's not moving. Or was this a glitch caught on camera? I mean, it looks super trippy, and it looks like the most standard glitch that you could see in a video game. So was this a real life glitch just like a game, or was it the shutter speed thing? I mean, we all know that it's the shutter speed thing, but it's still fun to think about it. Next on the list, we have a palette swap. You know, some games will randomly generate characters, so sometimes you can get some creatures that seem to be very similar to one another. And right here we have a palette swap on the subway that makes these characters seem very alike. So when you look at these guys, it seems pretty strange that they both have boss sweaters on that match the other person's hair, and these aren't standard hair colors. One dude has bright orange hair and the other guy has green hair. How do you get a mix-up like that unless the software that Elon Musk says runs the world goes a little bit haywire? Next on the list, we have Baldy. So if two people who look the same way wasn't enough to make you think that there could be some glitches in the Matrix, then let me show you this. What about 5 bald dudes on the bus all sitting in a row? Now I know that's very common for men to lose their hair as they get older, but what were these bus dudes up to? It looks like they're all in a club for dudes who have a cul-de-sac haircut. What are the chances of these dudes all being lined up so perfectly? Thank God we have cameras on us all the time now so we can catch stuff like this in the wild. Who cares about the Matrix when it comes to gold like this? This one was just funny. Next on the list, we have seeing the Matrix. This is what it's all about, am I right? This is what the people want to be able to do. You want to be able to see the Matrix and see the code passing by your eyes so you can work through it, so you can manipulate it, so you can become a god among men and ascend to Olympus to live among Zeus and the other immortals. Well, there was one person on Reddit who might have had a glitch happen to them that allowed them to see through time and space itself. This person said it started as a headache. They would get this weird pain in the back of their head before they would go to bed, and while they were sleeping, they would have vivid dreams. It only took them a couple days, but they realized that these dreams were becoming reality. There were key moments throughout their day that they had foreseen, and they started to use this to their advantage. They would know when something bad was going to happen and they could avoid it. Or there was one point where they knew to buy a lottery ticket that would give them $1,000. But the headaches were getting worse, and eventually this led to them having a seizure. They were taken to the hospital, and after this, a doctor gave them an MRI on their head, but they found nothing. And then the pain stopped, and also the vision stopped. Next on the list, we have the mirror doesn't match. We all understand what a mirror does and what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to reflect our image. Well, then why the hell does this happen? Okay, how on earth does that happen? We clearly see that the movement between these two images is off. It looks like there's a delay or whatever that's supposed to be happening on the mirror is glitching out. I'm sure that if someone jumps into the comments right now, they can break down why this is normal, but until that happens, this one is still freaking me out. And coming into the number 1 spot, we have Elon Musk. I think you all know this man's name because he just became the richest man in the world. He is the face of the powerhouse company known as Tesla, who has been seeing their stock shoot through the roof. He's also the mind behind SpaceX, the company that wants to take us to the stars and plop us right on Mars to start a new life out there. I don't know how I feel about living on Mars. It's not the most exciting thing to me. I think I'll stay down here with all the chaos we already have. Now, what Elon has also talked about is how he thinks that we're all living in a simulation, that everything is planned out mathematically, and through this, it is proof that everything is running on a program. It's up to you whether or not you want to believe him. Simulation theory sounds to me like a modern version of religion. Everyone is constantly searching for an explanation for our existence. But if you're able to become the richest and one of the most powerful people in the world, then you might know what a couple of the hacks are. Yeah.
Starting off at number 10, the Reddit user Watermelly3 posted this story. So she states that her experience happened a couple of years ago when she went to pick up her husband from the ferry after work. While pulling out of the parking lot, they noticed 2 individuals heading to their car. These individuals were strangers to each other. One was a man reaching into his bag, while the lady had her head positioned to the right. She claims that these individuals were completely frozen in these positions. The wife and the husband sat in the car watching the frozen strangers, and they were completely in shock. Then she claims that it was like someone pressed play on a remote and they just continued on like nothing happened. Now, there is only one explanation for this. Adam Sandler got hold of the remote from the movie Click Again. I love that movie. Kidding, but seriously, that's definitely a huge glitch to experience. Moving on to number 9. One night, a group of friends and roommates were hanging out together in their apartment. Now, one of the roommates just got a new phone, and she was sitting on the bed using it while all the other girls socialized. There was a moment when the roommate placed the phone down to be involved in the conversation. A few minutes later, she reached for her phone and it was gone. The girls call for it, but they can't find the phone. They strip the room and bed apart looking for the phone, but it's nowhere to be found. The girls began to become weirded out since no one had left the room during the conversation. They ended up going out to her car and they found the phone in the car, locked in the trunk. They were all in the same room, witnessed the girl on the phone and placing it on the bed, yet somehow it teleported down 3 floors and into the trunk of the car. That is so trippy. Unless the girls were heavily under the influence, there's no reasonable explanation for that. Let's move on to number 8. This next story comes from the Reddit user White Zombie Cat. Now, this man recounts his and his wife's experience with a glitch in the Matrix. He states that he went out with his wife for dinner one night. When he returned home, they opened the door and he saw his wife on the computer doing work. He claims that he is normally greeted with this image when he arrives home from work, except it was impossible this time because his wife was right beside him. Later that night, he tells his wife what he saw and she claims that she too saw herself sitting at the computer. I mean, I was going to say maybe his brain created the image in his mind since he stated that this is what he normally sees when he opens the door after work, but then he said that his wife saw it too. That's so strange. Moving on to number 7. This next story happened a couple of years ago. One day, this woman was in Best Buy when she came across the last book in the Stephen King series, The Dark Tower. The front of the cover had a picture of the character Roland in front of the tower with a field of roses behind him. She was a little confused as to why this book was in Best Buy, but she just continued on with her day. She was a fan of the series, had read the first 6 and wanted to buy this last one, but her money situation was tight at the time, so she just put the book back down and planned on buying it the next week. However, when she returned the following week, it wasn't there. A month later, she went to Barnes & Noble to get the copy when they said it had not come out yet. It was to come out in 6 months. When the book did come out 6 months later, the book cover was exactly how she remembered it. Now, authors do send out copies in advance to certain people to promote it, but she can't fathom how someone could accidentally leave this book on a shelf in Best Buy. What do you think of the story? Is Stephen King just really good at marketing, or was it a glitch in the Matrix? Let me know down below. On to number 6. Now, Disney World is known as the happiest place on earth, so nothing freaky or glitchy would happen there, right? Well, wrong. Think again. This next story surrounds a girl and her family when they took a trip to Disney. She was 6 years old at the time and she and her family went to watch a parrot show. In the middle of the show, she had to go to the bathroom, so her mom took her while her dad stayed with her sister to watch the show. When they returned from the bathroom, the whole place was empty, so they decided to go back to the bathroom to wait for her dad and sister. They waited there looking for them for 2 hours before deciding to go back to the hotel to wait for them there. However, while waiting at the bathroom area, the girl saw a lizard and squirrel fighting. This may sound insignificant now, but just hold on. So when her dad and sister finally returned to the hotel, they claimed that they too were waiting at the same spot outside of the bathrooms for them. They never saw each other, but both of the sisters said that they saw the lizard and squirrel fighting from the exact same spot on the bench. How is that possible? How did they both see the same thing from the same position, but they weren't even together? Like, seriously, what is going on? We are now at our halfway mark with number 5. This next individual posted a story about meeting someone who no longer exists. In October of 2018, this woman developed tendinitis in her hand and had to go see a hand specialist. The hand specialist was a Vietnamese woman with glasses and straight dark brown hair. She describes this woman as really happy and talkative. She even said that they had an in-depth conversation about her tendinitis and how this woman attended a conference that discussed the rise of people developing tendinitis from their phone usage. Now, the specialist stated that if after a few weeks her hand wasn't getting better, to come back to be re-examined. So a couple of weeks later, she returned to see the same doctor. However, the woman appeared completely different. This woman was Caucasian with no glasses and light brown hair. They had different personalities, were not the same woman, but had the same name. The woman then described the new specialist of her encounter with the other woman. This new specialist said that it was only her there with that name. Later, she did some research and looked at the hospital directory, but still couldn't find the Vietnamese specialist. She even double-checked her record records, and both of her visits say the same doctor's name on them. So it wasn't like she did see two different people. So she claims that she met someone that no longer exists. Now, I was thinking about this. Was this woman an imposter? Probably not. But maybe her other doctor wasn't in during her first appointment and she had the Vietnamese woman as a replacement for that day. Now, there are tons of studies that prove that even our brain can play tricks on us and our memories can fail us. So let's say that she went to go to the office, her doctor wasn't in, and instead she saw the specialist that was filling in, which was the Vietnamese woman. Maybe she didn't catch the woman introduce herself, and since it was just her first time there, she just assumed that the Vietnamese woman was just the regular specialist she would be seeing. That's the only logical explanation I could come up with. If you have any more theories, let me know down below. Alright, moving on to number 4. This story happened about 15 years ago. This one man called up his friend, and when there was no answer, he left a message on his answering machine. In the message he said, "Hey, it's me, sorry I missed your call you later, bye." He went on with his day until he got a call from his friend asking what the deal with the message was and asking who the girl he was with was. But he stated that he wasn't with a girl. So the friend brought him over to his house and they listened to the message together. After his message that he recorded, there was about 30 to 40 more seconds of him talking to some girl. He knew it was himself because he recognized his own voice and mannerisms, but he doesn't know who the girl was, nor does he remember even leaving that half of the message. He claims that the conversation that he had with the girl was about going skiing and then him having to go to his car shop and work on his car first. Then the message ended. To this day, he can't explain what happened or even figure out who the girl he was talking to was. Next, we have number 3. Now, this next individual got a little lost while on their way to a location due to a train station being under construction with lots of restricted areas. So in order to find his way around, he was using Google Maps. Now, Google Maps instructed him to go through this one path that was off limits. There was a plywood wall with a sign that read "Under construction, unauthorized access, forbidden, no entry." However, he claims that people were entering and exiting through this door like it was no big deal. He also said that these people looked out of place. They weren't construction workers, but they were still going in and out of the restricted area. Now, he thought that since other people were doing it, that he would trust Google Maps and go through it as well. He decided to follow a guy in through the door. However, when he emerged through the other side, it was an empty area completely under construction. The guy who he followed in was nowhere to be seen. Google Maps was telling him to keep going along this unpaved path. However, a man driving a construction tractor drove by him and gave him a weird look. He knew that he was out of place, so he decided to head back. When he went back through the door, other individuals were looking at him weirdly, just as he did when he saw the people. So basically, people were spawning and despawning out of nowhere. Literally as if they were just being created or deleted from a game. Maybe he just dreamt of this situation, or maybe Google Maps literally pointed him in the direction of the spawn point for humans in the world. We are now at our second spot. This one is by far one of the trippiest ones. It was submitted by the Reddit user Musical Moses. He states that him and his buddies were returning home from a road trip. He just got off the phone with his parents and told them that they would be home in about 25 minutes. However, as they continued driving, they rounded the corner and the road ahead of them was completely empty. There were no cars ahead or behind them. He then claims that everything went black for a moment. The dashboard lights went off and even the headlights. Even the music stopped playing. Then everything went back to normal. The CD restarted from the beginning and they now could see a car ahead of them being pulled over by a cop, which wasn't there a second ago. Now, the passenger just shook it off, thinking he fell asleep and then woke up later on. But the other passengers in the car all experienced the same thing, even the driver. The scariest thing of all was that the clock showed that it was an hour later. And when they arrived to the house, even their parents asked what took them so long, when they said they were only 25 minutes away. So all of them lost an hour of time and don't know what happened. Some people believe that they were tired from the road trip and dozed off, but everyone at the same time, and even the driver who somehow still managed to steer the car, doesn't make sense to me. And he's one good of a driver if he can drive while sleeping. And in our number 1 spot, we have the man who called himself. I mean, I hate answering my phone as it is, but imagine picking up the phone and talking to yourself on the other line, because that's literally what happened to this next dude. In the early 2000s, a man by the name of Taylor was working as a corrections officer in a juvenile detention center in Oklahoma. Now, one night he arrived at work and his supervisor asked him what he was doing there. Apparently, he called called in a few hours prior to his shift saying he was sick and couldn't come in. For that moment, the whole night kept getting weirder. He went on to look at the notes taken from when he called in sick. It was noted that he called in at 6:50 and said he was sick while outside cleaning up after the storm. Taylor said that there was a storm the night before, but there was nothing outside that he really cleaned up. Continuing on, he was a little freaked out and decided to call his wife to talk about it. But when he called, a man answered the phone. He checked the phone to make sure that it was the right number that he dialed, and it was. Taylor asked this man who he is, and he says, "This is Taylor. Who is this?" Taylor then asks Taylor where his wife Ann is, and the man says that she's in bed. Now Taylor rushed home to check on his wife and found her on the couch watching TV. He tried to call his work from home, but the phone line was dead. When he returned back to work, his buddy Dave told him that he picked up the phone after him and the guy on the phone sounded just like him, but he witnessed Taylor leaving, so it couldn't have been. Later on that night, he found out that the phone line had been knocked over that night before by the storm. Whew. Now, one guy commented saying that he believes in one reality, Taylor went outside to fix the phone line and that's how he got sick. He then called into work saying he couldn't come. But in the other reality, the other version of Taylor didn't go outside and didn't get sick, which caused a glitch and is why he was able to communicate with himself.